What's good, C-Tiers? Today we're taking it down to the ATL to salute one of the most influential labels in hip-hop and R&B history, So Def. From Kross and Brat to Bowwow, Xscape, and Jagged Edge, So Def had its hand in every lane. Rap, R&B, remixes, even reality TV. But after the early 2000s run, a lot of the artists either faded out or pivoted to new lanes. We're shining a light on how these artists evolved, who's still in the game, who took a step back, and who flipped their fame into something completely different. Before we get into it, make sure to like, subscribe, and tap into our Patreon for exclusive content, including album reactions and deep dives you won't find anywhere else. Now with that out the way, let's get to it. Young Bloods. Young Bloods brought that ATL crunk energy with the more laid-back southern drawl. The duo, Sean P and J-Bo, broke out in the early 2000s with hits like U-Way, 85, and the Lil Jon produced banger Damn, which turned into their biggest anthem. Their sophomore album, Drinking Partners, was their one and only release with the So Def sticker, and it was also their most commercially successful. After the crunk wave cooled off, so did the group's momentum. They dropped one more project, Everybody Know Me, in 05, but after that, things got pretty quiet. Sean P tried a solo run with hood anthems in 07, but it didn't quite stick. J-Bo kept a lower profile, occasionally dropping indie music. They never officially split and both still rep Young Bloods, but they've mostly operated as solo acts over the past decade or so. No major comeback, but they still tour on nostalgia circuits and pop up at ATL reunions. They may not have had the longest run, but when Damn drops in the club, it still hits. A crunk classic with a smooth twist, and a reminder that the South had more than one sound. Jaquan. Jaquan exploded onto the scene in 2004 with Tipsy, a track that went from teen house party anthem to Billboard smash seemingly overnight. At just 17, the St. Louis rapper had a hit that made him a household name. His debut album Hood Hot dropped the same year and had a few solid joints, but none that came close to the impact of that first single. Now, he didn't disappear right away. He dropped follow-ups like Hood Hop 2 and Hood Hot 2.5 independently, and even popped up on tracks with Bowwow and Jermaine Depri. But by the late 2000s, the mainstream spotlight had moved on. In 2010, he made headlines for briefly going missing, which turned out to be a misunderstanding, but gave him a bit of viral attention. Since then, he's kept releasing music here and there, staying connected with a loyal fan base, mostly through YouTube and indie releases. Jaquan never hit Tipsy levels again, but he embraced that one-hit wonder label with humor and humility. Quan had the spotlight back on him briefly as country music artist Shaboozey brought him out for a surprise performance at the 2024 BET Awards. And in today's TikTok-driven world, don't be shocked if that hook finds new life. Either way, Jaquan had his moment and made sure it was loud. Hot Dollar. Hot Dollar had a quick spark that felt like it could have turned into something bigger. His 2007 single Streets on Lock, later remixed as Sidekick, became a surprise hit, especially on the West Coast. Rapping Compton but connected to So Def by way of Island Def Jam, Hot Dollar had the street appeal, the voice, and the right beat selection. There was buzz around him being JD's West Coast answer to the South's trap explosion, a little game, a little Jeezy, but with his own flavor. But despite the early momentum, his debut album never materialized. So whether it was label issues, timing, or just industry politics, Hot Dollar didn't get that next level push. He stayed active after the buzz cooled, dropping mixtapes like My Dreams, A Day in the Life, and Crackhead mixtape, but nothing caught fire the same way. Over the years, he's faded from the mainstream radar, but continues to release music independently. Hot Dollar had a window where it felt like he could have taken off. The talent was there, the voice was distinct, but in an industry built on timing, sometimes even a hot single isn't enough. Bone Crusher. Bone Crusher had one of the most unforgettable intros in Southern rap history. When he screamed, "I ain't never scared" over that monstrous beat, it felt like the whole South stood up. The song became an anthem, not just in the streets, but in sports arenas, video games, hell, even politics. His 2003 debut Attention dropped under So Def and went gold, with JD helping push his unique look and sound to the forefront. But after that breakout, things slowed down. Follow-up singles didn't connect the same way, and his second album never took off. Still, Crusher kept working, releasing indie projects, producing, and even making reality TV appearances on Celebrity Fit Club that showed a different side of him. More recently, he's been involved in the ATL rap scene as a mentor and occasional guest feature. He's also leaned into content, appearing in interviews and documentaries reflecting on the crunk era and ATL's evolution. Bone Crusher may be seen as a one-hit wonder by some, but in Atlanta, he's a legend. That one hit did a lot, and he never stopped repping the city that made him. Them Franchise Boys. Them Franchise Boys had the ringtone era on Smash. With Snap Music dominating clubs in the mid-2000s, they pulled off back-to-back anthems. White Tee, Lean With It, Rock With It, and I Think They Like Me had both the streets and radio in a headlock. Once they linked with Jermaine Depri and So So Def, it was a wrap. JD helped polish their sound and give them the industry machine they needed to level up. Their 2006 album, On Top of Our Game, was their peak, solid sales, non-stop party records, and national attention. But the Snap era was short-lived, and as the South sound evolved, them Franchise Boys' momentum faded quickly. They dropped the follow-up album, Our World, Our Way, but it didn't hit commercially. Afterward, the group went quiet, with members pursuing solo work and mixtapes, though none gained major traction. Tragedy struck in 2019 when group member Buddy passed away, further closing the chapter on their mainstream run. Still, their influence can't be denied. They helped define a moment in Southern hip-hop and left behind some undeniable party classics. Every time Lean With It comes on, it's 2006 all over again. Xscape. Xscape was So So Def's first R&B powerhouse, a 4-woman vocal group that blended street edge with church-raised harmonies. Jermaine Depri signed them in the early 90s and helped shape their sound across 3 successful albums: Hummin' Comin' At Ya, Off the Hook, and Traces of My Lipstick. Hits like Just Kickin' It, Who Can I Run To, and My Little Secret still ring off today. But behind the scenes, tensions were building. By 1998, the group split, each member going their own way. Kandi Burruss went on to become a Grammy-winning songwriter and reality TV star. Tiny Cottle married T.I. and helped form girl group OMG Girls. Latasha and Tamika Scott both pursued solo music and acting careers. Fast forward to the 2010s and the group reunited, minus Kandi at first, for a tour and reality series. Since then, they've been back and forth between reunions and solo moves. Their versus battle with SWV reminded everyone just how deep their catalog went though. Xscape may have had a rocky road, but the talent never left. Their blend of soul and sass helped define So So Def's R&B legacy, and they're still kicking it decades later. You don't just listen to music, it shapes you. That vibe, that energy, that voice. How Raised Me merch? It's all about honoring the albums that built the culture that built you. 8 legendary albums on every piece. A nod to the past, a flex for the future. Ready to rep your roots? Cop now at shop.culturalisttheory.com. Kross. Before So So Def was even a household name, Kross kicked the door in. Jermaine Depri discovered the Atlanta teens, Kris Mac Daddy Kelly and Kris Daddy Mac Smith, in a mall and turned them into international stars. Their debut single, Jump, dropped in 1992 and became a global smash, topping the Billboard chart for 8 weeks. At just 13 years old, they were rocking backwards clothes and outselling grown rappers. Their debut album, Totally Crossed Out, went multi-platinum, and while follow-ups like Da Bomb and Young, Rich and Dangerous didn't reach the same commercial heights, they still had hits like Tonight's the Night and Warm It Up. After the group faded from the spotlight, they mostly stayed out of the limelight. JD reunited them briefly for a So So Def anniversary show in 2013, but sadly that same year Chris Kelly passed away from a drug overdose. Chris Smith, the surviving member, has occasionally spoken on their legacy and dropped music independently. Kross may have been a moment, but it was massive. And for kids in the 90s, they were hip-hop's first taste of teen superstardom. Rocco. Rocco came in the game more as a boss than a breakout artist. Starting behind the scenes, he built his A1 Recordings label and helped guide the early career of Future. But in 2007, he stepped to the mic himself, signed with So So Def/Island, and dropped Self-Made. The album gave us the certified street banger I'ma Do Me, which became a massive regional hit and earned him national buzz. He followed that with a series of mixtapes that cemented his place in Atlanta's independent scene. Rocco Dinero, Wordplay, and Wild Life are all fan favorites. He may not have been chasing the charts, but he stayed consistent. In 2013, Rocco dropped You Ain't Even Know, a sleeper hit that blew up with help from remixes featuring Rick Ross, Future, and A$AP Rocky. The song's controversy around Ross's lyrics didn't stop it from going platinum and giving Rocco his biggest commercial success. These days, Rocco's more focused on the business side. He's been involved in management, label work, and publishing, still moving smart behind the scenes. He might have never reached superstar status. Case in point, Complex leaving him off of their top 50 Atlanta rappers list. We still ain't forgave him for that. But Rocco played his position and built quietly, the ATL way. Harlem World. Harlem World was a short-lived group with big potential. Formed by Mace during his peak bad boy era, they were introduced in the late 90s as the next wave of New York talent. While only signed to So So Def for about 5 minutes, that was enough time to drop their only album, The Movement, with JD executive producing. And if you want to know what Just Blaze, Kanye West, and Neptune's beats sounded like in the 90s, give the album a spin. The group included Mace's sister, Baby Stace, Huddy Six, Mino, Blinky Blink, Cardan, and Loon, yes, that Loon, who would later sign to Bad Boy Solo. The Movement dropped in '99, went gold, and had a couple of minor hits, but after that, the group vanished just as quickly as they came. Mace retired, temporarily, the group disbanded, and members went their separate ways. Loon found solo success before legal issues sidelined him for years. Huddy Six tragically passed away in 2010. The rest pursued solo ventures or just faded into the background. Harlem World is one of those groups that came up in the perfect moment. Late 90s flash, slick talk, and big backing, but didn't last long enough to leave a major mark. Still, they're a time capsule of that shiny suit Harlem swagger era. Jagged Edge. Jagged Edge was So So Def's R&B anchor during the late 90s and early 2000s. The Atlanta quartet, twin brothers Brandon and Brian Casey, Cal Norman, and Richard Wingo, brought that church-trained harmony with just enough edge to appeal to both the ladies and the streets. With Jermaine Depri and Brian Michael Cox behind the boards, Jagged Edge dropped a string of hits. Let's Get Married, Where the Party At, Promise, and He Can't Love You. Their 2000 album, J.E. Heartbreak, went double platinum and remains a high point in early 2000s R&B. A classic for sure. Even as R&B shifted and the label game changed, J.E. kept working. They bounced between So So Def, Def Jam, and eventually went independent, dropping albums like The Remedy and A Jagged Love Story for their Day One fans. They've constantly toured, kept their lineup intact, and stayed active on the R&B circuit without needing mainstream validation. They might not trend, but their catalog is deep and their fan base is loyal. Jagged Edge represents that era of feel-good, wedding day, ride or die R&B, and they've never really left the game. Jonte Austin. Jonte Austin might not have had the flashy profile of other So So Def artists, but behind the scenes, man, he's one of the label's biggest success stories. Starting out as a teenage host on CNN's Real News for Kids, Jonte transitioned into songwriting and became a certified hit maker. Under Jermaine Depri's wing, he penned some of the biggest R&B records of the 2000s. Man, we're talking about Mariah Carey's We Belong Together, Mary J. Blige's Be Without You, and multiple Usher hits from Confessions, including Can You Handle It and Sweet Lies. He's got 2 Grammys to his name and a catalog that helped define the So So Def sound beyond just JD's production. As a solo artist, Jonte dropped singles like Turn It Up and Little More Love, and while his album Ocean Drive was shelved, he kept recording. Thankfully, he got his flowers during a versus battle with Neo, where fans discovered his pen behind those classics we stated earlier. In recent years, he's released music on the low, including the Love, Sex, and Religion EP, while continuing to write for other artists. Jonte Austin is the pen behind the pain, the love songs, and the anthems. Whether or not his solo career blew up, his influence is everywhere. Quiet legend status. So So Def wouldn't be the same without him. Dandrea. Dandrea had one of the more unique come-ups on So So Def. She got discovered on YouTube, back when uploading covers was just starting to become a thing. JD found her channel, saw the raw talent, and signed her in the late 2000s. She dropped her debut album, Dandrea vs. Fat Fat, in 2010, led by the single You're the One, which hit top 20 on the R&B charts. The voice was undeniable, a mix of classic soul and modern edge. She had that Monica, Aaliyah, 90s R&B essence, and for a second, it felt like she was up next. But after the first album, the push slowed down, no major follow-up project under So So Def, and momentum faded as the label itself started to shift. Dandrea stayed consistent though. She took that independent route, dropped EPs like A Tale of Hearts and Perspective, and kept her fan base engaged with new music, performances, and social content. She also did theater and continued building outside the traditional label system. So she might not have gotten the spotlight she deserved during the So So Def run, but Dandrea is still here, still singing, still evolving, and still one of the voices people sleep on until they press play. Anthony Hamilton. While most fans associate Anthony Hamilton with soul and gospel-infused R&B, the fact he had been making music since the mid-90s often gets overlooked. He was signed to the Andre Harrell-led Uptown Records and had an album scheduled to drop. Unfortunately, due to poor reception from his lead single, the album was shelved indefinitely. Now, if you're curious as to how it sounded, you can find the album in full on YouTube. Go take a listen for yourself. His breakout didn't come until 2003's Coming Where I'm From, his first of 3 So So Def releases, which of course gave us the modern day classic Charlene and firmly established him as one of R&B's most soulful voices. Since then, he's released a string of well-respected projects, collaborated with everyone from Rick Ross to Jill Scott, and built a legacy off timeless music rooted in real life. He's also dabbled in acting and voiceover work and continues to tour and release music independently. Anthony Hamilton might not be remembered as a core So-So Def act, but his time there was a stepping stone on the way to becoming one of the most respected voices in modern soul. Lil Bow Wow. When Lil Bow Wow dropped Beware of Dog in 2000 under So-So Def, he was only 13, but had already gotten cosigns from Snoop Dogg and JD. With Jermaine Depri guiding him, Bow Wow had one of the strongest teen rap runs ever. Hits like Bounce With Me, Bow Wow That's My Name, and Take You Home made him a household name, and his first 2 albums went platinum. As he grew older, Bow tried to shed the Lil tag and mature his image. He eventually left So-So Def and joined Cash Money, where the results were mixed. He continued acting in roles like Mike, Roll Bounce, and Lottery Ticket, and stayed in the spotlight even when the music cooled off. In recent years, Bow Wow's leaned more into nostalgia and TV. He's done Growing Up Hip Hop, hosted BET events, and toured with the Millennium Tour alongside B2K and other early 2000s acts. He still teases new music, but hasn't dropped a full-length project in years. Yo, say what you want, but Bow Wow had a serious run, and for an entire generation, he was their first favorite rapper. Let us know down in the comments, is it time for that Lil Bow Wow album's ranked video? Sound off below. Brat. Brat was the first female solo rapper to go platinum, so let's start there. Straight out of the Shy, she linked with Jermaine Depri in the early 90s and became a key part of So-So Def's foundation. Her 1994 debut, Functified, made history and proved that women could go bar for bar and sell records. Her flow was slick, tomboyish, confident, and the production from JD gave it that polished bounce that worked in the streets and on the radio. She followed up with solid projects like Another Tantrum and had one of her coldest verses on Mariah Carey's Always Be My Baby remix, kickstarting a long run of legendary guest spots. Brat became a go-to feature and So-So Def staple even when the albums weren't flying off shelves. In the 2000s, she kept a lower profile, made headlines for some legal issues, and eventually did a short bid in prison. But when she came home, the rebrand was on. She jumped in reality TV, most notably The Rap Game with JD, and became a radio host on Dish Nation and Ricky Smiley Morning Show, where she still holds it down today. On top of that, she recently made history again by publicly embracing her relationship with entrepreneur Jessica Judy Harris. The two married and had a child in 2023, Brat becoming a mom for the first time at age 49. From platinum plaques to motherhood, Brat's journey has been wild, unapologetic, and one of one. She helped define the So-So Def sound, and decades later, she's still finding ways to evolve. A true trailblazer and forever functified. Jermaine Depri. Jermaine Depri doesn't just have hits, he built an empire. From Kross to Brat, Xscape, Bow Wow, and Jagged Edge, hell, even Usher and Mariah Carey, JD's fingerprints are all over 90s and 2000s music. He founded So-So Def in '93, and under his vision, it became one of the most versatile and respected labels in the game. He didn't just discover talent, he developed it. Wrote the songs, produced the beats, even helped shape the images. As the industry shifted, Jermaine Depri never really left, he just adapted. He remained active as a producer and songwriter, constantly working with R&B heavyweights like Usher, Ari Lennox, and Summer Walker. His catalog continues to grow, and his influence on ATL hip-hop and global R&B is undeniable. In 2023, he and Currency dropped for motivational use only, showing he can still cook with newer generations. He's also been appearing more in front of the camera, verses, interviews, and recently he's been teasing a So-So Def documentary and full anniversary tour. Right now, you can catch him cooking up new music for that Magic City documentary he's also producing. Jermaine Depri doesn't always get the credit he deserves, but he's a legend in every sense of the word. Architect, hit maker, cultural curator, and he's still out here adding chapters to the story. Yo, that wraps our look at So-So Def, from teen sensations and R&B royalty to street rappers and behind-the-scenes legends. Jermaine Depri built the legacy that blended ATL flavor with mainstream domination, and even decades later, the legacy still runs deep. If you want more, check out our other Where Are They Now videos that you can see on screen here. Don't forget, we got exclusive content over at Patreon, and for our label fans, we got our brand new Raised Me merch featuring drops from Cash Money, Death Row, and G-Unit, with more on the way. Cop yours and rep the label that raised you. Now, drop a comment and let us know which label should we cover next. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share at the same damn time. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.